Good morning, my friends. It's time for coffee time with John. The back deck is lovely this morning. Not too cold. There's no real wind. But winter is coming. That thing you see right there, that's ivy going up that tree. And all those leaves that you usually see behind me are gone. That's a pin oak, which will hold most of its leaves all winter, and they'll drop off mainly slowly over the winter, but a big chunk in the spring. And then this tree over here is all brown. They're going to just drop off in a day probably. So most of the leaves are gone. The air smells so nice. It's not too cold. It's not at all hot. Right? You take a big breath and you feel it. In your lungs, it just feels lovely. But I wanted to talk today about the breath. In fact, I wanted to have a deep thought about the breath. Deep thoughts with Jack Handy. I just showed you my age. I did a old Saturday Night Live joke. You know, I often talk about finding God at the bottom of every breath. And when I talk about addiction, I talk about the idea that addiction is really just medicating your fear. And the reason for that is, say, if I'm a coffee addict, I go, I need my coffee. Or if I'm a cigarette smoker, I'm like, I need a cigarette. Or if I'm an alcoholic, it's same thing. I need a drink. You allow yourself to exhale and to breathe and really flow. Laughter is a joyful exhalation. Crying is a release through exhalation. You're letting it go. I also talked about in another video about being here is kind of like scuba diving. You know, we come down here, but every 16 hours or so we have to go back to the other side, and we get tired and we fall asleep. But what happens when we get tired? And I know I just made some of you yawn, but sorry. We start to yawn. And the more tired we get, the closer we get to going back to that different conscious state, we start yawning more and more. We start exhaling more and more. In that analogy of scuba diving, fear is the water. Fear is the water. And we come down into our fears and anxieties, and when we go, we release it. We come back to a place of ease and joy. And we have no burdens upon us when we let it go. But we're the ones who choose to let it go. We're the ones who choose to exhale in those moments. Laughter, it's spontaneous. Crying, it's spontaneous. Yawning, it's spontaneous. Because oneness with God is our true nature. We naturally fall back into the grace of God when we let go of our thoughts. You know, I talk about the story of Adam and Eve and how the moral is they got in their heads and out of their hearts. They lost the feeling. Well, when you're in your head, when your fears and your anxieties and afraid of not knowing, even that's a fear, right? But then when we let all that go, we let our mind clear. That's why when I sit in love in the mornings, first thing I do is I just focus on the feeling of it. When I'm doing a private reading an hour before, when I sit down and I'm about to write that channeled message before every reading, I go, and I just let it come. I don't get in the way of it. But that breath, they call it the breath of God for a reason. Because the breath is natural. There's a moment in deep meditation called the observer moment where you get to watch your body breathe on its own. And you realize a couple of things. Number one, that you don't breathe your body. And number two, when your body breathes without you, it breathes easier. It breathes without effort. All of the effort of breath, all of the effort of breathing is our fears and anxieties and how we manipulate it. We also know that when we drop into a fear state, our primal response is to store air in our body. And that actors, whenever they forget their lines on stage, they're literally trained to exhale, and all their lines rush right back into their heads because they turn off the fear response. They tap back into the greater consciousness that remembers all their lines. It really comes down to you allowing yourself to breathe and exploring your breath, diving into that simple space that you can go to at any moment of the day. Any moment of the day, you can completely relax and let all the air out and release the fear response. And when you get into doing that just as a practice, you'll start to notice how your world will smooth out, because that is the base. That is your truest nature. That is love. That feeling that you feel at the bottom of that breath when you let go of the tension in your body is the feeling of love. And the more you can work with that feeling and acknowledge that feeling and focus on that feeling, everything changes. You know, when I do it, I get goosebumps all over my body. And the reason it happens is because I'm so used to acknowledging that is God right there at the bottom of that breath and feeling that feeling of unconditional love. I feel it more, which gives me the goosebumps all over my body every time I do it. Every time I do it. If you had a reading with me, I'd probably have raised my arm in front of the camera to show you the goosebumps, because it really is that impactful to me. My point of this is this. Your connection to God is an acknowledgement. It's a choice to release your fears. And Buddha said the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. God is with you all the time. God is never absent, and everything you're looking at is the image of God. And it really comes down to you just saying, I accept that, and I am one with, and we work together as a team, God and I. And you say, okay, God, I'm going to set down my fears. Oh, there you are. Thanks for showing up. More of that, please. You guys, go out and take a breath. Give yourself a break. Get some coffee. Hang out on the back deck. And breathe. And exhale. And it feels so good. You guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.